Everyone yearns for unconditional love, and everyone wants an opportunity to be able to love someone unconditionally. But I wonder how many people actually know what unconditional love looks like. In fact, forget unconditional love. What about love? How many people actually understand what love really is? And I know it might seem quite ironic or maybe even entertaining that someone like me is wanting to talk about love and what it means. But just bear with me. I'm not so jaded that I don't have a take on this. Love is often misconstrued because there's all sorts of things that feel like love, that we think is love, that we express as love, but it's actually something else. And the only time it reveals itself as being something else is when the love is tested. When it's tested to see whether it can actually weather the storms of life or not, and what causes it to then fade or to not be enough. And that's why there's so many romantic notions about love and about unconditional love. But what if I told you that unconditional love is one of the most prominent, most common contributing factors to abuse? Abuse of power, abuse of privilege, abuse of entitlement, abuse of authority. And I'm not talking about politics and government and all of that. I'm talking about the basic stuff in your life daily, the people you are interacting with on a daily basis. Because when we don't understand what love is, we mistake it for loyalty. We mistake it for devotion. We mistake it for compliance, conformance, obedience, respect. Infatuation, lust, most common one. Most people fall in lust on first sight and they think they just fell in love. I'm not being jaded, I'm not being cynical. Seriously, think about it. If love at first sight was truly love at first sight, then pretty much most people who get married for the first time, because multiple times of trying to get it right these days is more common than people who get it right the first time around. And even then, the people that get it right, that stick through it for the first time of their attempt, is not necessarily because they're getting it right. It's just because they prefer to know where the problems in their life are coming from rather than to have uncertainty about it. So that's a topic for another day. Back to the issue of love and unconditional love. So love has to be a consequence of all of those things that I mentioned. It can't be the precursor to it. It can't be the thing that gets you on that path. You can't love someone if you don't truly know them. Because then what is it about them that you love? Your perception of them? Your assumption of what it is you're going to get from them? Are you loving what it is that they offer you because of your association with them? How good it will look when you walk into a room and they by your side and you can show them off in that. That's a trophy, by the way. When you love what someone brings into your life, you love what they bring into your life. Which means that they are replaceable because it's what they bring into your life that's important. When you love what you get from someone, you're loving what you're getting. And if someone else comes along and gives you that better than what they give it to you, suddenly your love shifts from them to someone else. What about when you love how it is that you can make someone feel? The ability to make someone smile, the ability to make someone laugh and someone feel safe. Are you loving them? Or are you loving the fact that they give you an opportunity to feel good about being able to impact another human in that way? Love is not as straightforward as the romance novels would like us to believe, or as the philosophers would love to describe it as. It's not something that I think is like divinely inspired and predetermined and you're written for each other and all of that sort of thing. I don't think that's what love is. And yes, everyone's going to have their own take on what love looks like and what it feels like. And relative to the context of your life, if that is what feels like love to you and it's sustained in that way, then good for you. That's love to you. But is it love? And if it is love, what happens when you don't get what you need from that person anymore? Does the love fade? Or does the utility of having them in your life fade? So when people say they love each other, they need to be very clear about what it is that they love about each other, so that that gives them something substantial to work with. And that's why I'm saying I don't think it's love for the most part that attracts people to each other. I think they express it as love, but it's not truly love in itself. And I'm not going to go into dictionary meanings of this and whose interpretations are correct and all that. I'm just trying to put substance to something that is fundamental to fulfillment in life. You love what you do. Why? Because it gives you a sense of fulfillment. Sometimes you love what you do because of how it is that it earns you social credits, social points, where you are admired and respected and appreciated for your contribution. Then you love that. You don't love what you do. You love what it does for you. And the less aware you are of these differences, the more likely it is that you're going to have blind spots about things that you say that sets massive expectations on the part of the person hearing it, while you think, well, yeah, I said I love you, but I think you maybe too obsessed, because you didn't realize what impact those words had on them. You don't realize what impact you have. And that's why you might not realize what it is that you're truly connecting with. And that is why relationships are difficult to sustain, are difficult to understand. Because we say we love others, but what we actually love is what it is that they represent. We love what it is that they present to us, what it is that they make available to us, what it is that we can dream about through them, how we can live vicariously through them as well. And all of those things play into it, right? But if you're not in a healthy space with yourself, then when someone makes you feel like you're completed because they fill that gap, that's going to feel like love. But back to the unconditional part of it, because the unconditional part is so often abused, pardon the pun, because more often than not, people condone bad behavior in others because they love them unconditionally. And that's the problem. Who are you loving unconditionally? Them, or what it is that they represent to you, what it is that you get from them because of how important it is for you to feel a certain way because of what you are capable of doing for them. So when it comes to meaningful relationships, sincere, significant others in your life, it's easy to be blinded by this idea that I love you unconditionally, so that means I support you unconditionally, that means I condone what you do unconditionally, etc., etc., etc. And I would argue that that kind of unconditional love is what leads to honor killings. The most vile of cultural practices is a result of this idea of unconditional love, because it's an unconditional love or attachment to a certain phenomenon, a certain trait, a certain cultural norm or tradition. That is what causes us to become blinded by the service to it, by how we honor it, regardless of what it's actually doing. And then we end up justifying how it is that we can harm others or treat others badly because of unconditional love. That's why we end up with the corruption that we do in our communities and in our homes. Because then, if it's one of our own, we love them unconditionally, and because we love them unconditionally, we'll do everything we can to save them from getting into trouble. So if they go and defraud someone or kill someone even, and this is literal, I'm not just saying this figuratively. I'm saying we have, and I know of cases firsthand, where family members will know that their family member or their son or their daughter or their child or their whoever, someone related to them, is directly involved with illicit or criminal behavior or blatantly abusive behavior towards their partners, towards others, towards innocent people in business dealings and things like that. But because they're blood, they'll use all their resources to make sure that they don't ever spend a day in jail, or they don't ever face authorities, or they don't ever have to make right what it is that they took advantage of with someone who was innocent and who didn't deserve it. That's the problem with unconditional love. Unconditional love is never ever about who you love. Unconditional love is about how you want to appear to be dedicated and completely above reproach for the people that you care about. And it's because of your association with them. It's because of how you want people to see you. It's not because of unconditional love. Unconditional love, what would it look like if it was healthy? What would love look like if it was healthy? Love is something that I believe is a consequence of other things. It's not something, I don't believe love is a verb. And people will probably think I'm crazy, and I'll have no shortage of people challenging me about this. But love is not a verb. You can't love someone specifically. What you can do is you can honor the love you have for them through action and through service. And if you don't distinguish between the two, you'll convince yourself that everything you do is out of love for them. Meanwhile, a lot of what you do is because of how you need to feel, because of your ability to be enough for them. It's selfish. It's self-serving. And that's why unconditional love, more often than not, in fact, I have yet to come across a case where someone was loved unconditionally in the true sense of unconditional love. More often than not, it's because of how it makes us feel and what it reflects about us and how we want to be seen and how we don't want to be judged to not being unconditional in our love for someone and things. We want to be the ones that rise above all of the betrayal and all of the heartache and all of the letdowns and everything else, because, oh, I loved you unconditionally and look what you did to me. But because I love you unconditionally, I'm not going to hate you. I'll leave you to do what it is that you did, and you can move on with your life and whatever it is, but know that I loved you unconditionally. Seriously? If you love someone, truly love someone, you would want for them what you want for yourself. If you truly love someone, you will want for them what it is that you want for yourself. So if you make excuses for someone to treat someone else badly, then that means you don't see a problem with you treating others badly. And you can't give what you don't have, remember? If you can't give what you don't have, that means that if you don't truly know or connect with substantially in a good, meaningful way, if you don't connect with loving yourself in a way that is healthy and grounded and balanced and regulated in a good way, if you don't have that for yourself, then inevitably you're going to distort what you think love looks like when you're loving someone else. And that's why a healthy self-esteem and mindfulness and self-awareness is so critically important. Because then you are able to discern, you're able to distinguish, to determine the difference between what is an obsession versus what is love. What is servitude or transacting versus what is love. And then suddenly love is not such a touchy-feely, mushy kind of thing anymore. Now it's something that has a lot more substance, a lot more meaning, a lot more value. Because then you focused on what is it about the attributes of the person that you love. And then if you have good reason to believe that those attributes that you see in them are attributes that are a result of their convictions, that's who they choose to be, who they want to be, then if you love them, you will work with them as much as you can to ensure that you don't allow them to behave in a way that conflicts with those attributes, with those values that you see in them. Then you're loving someone the way you would love yourself. Because if you're doing something that you know is harmful to someone else, you would want to stop it. We usually do something harmful to someone else because in our mind, we've got something that justifies why it is that it's okay for us to do it. We know that it's not a good thing to do, but we believe that for whatever reason it's deserved or it's appropriate or it's warranted under those circumstances. Until we calm down and we regain our composure and we look back and we realize what we did, then only the regret sets in. So that's long after the fact. So for that to be something that we experience in the moment, we have to have a lot more mindfulness. We have to have a lot more self-awareness and purpose in how it is that we go out making decisions and what we want to do. In other words, we need more accountability for our actions and for our reasons, for our motives and for our intentions. But most people don't. Most people only want to be accountable for their intentions, but not their actions. And that then is selective. It's opportunistic. And if it's opportunistic, how can it be love? How can it be genuinely sincere, divinely sublime love if it is conditional? But just because you say it's unconditional doesn't mean it is. Because then the moment that person stops showing up for you the way you need them to, do your feelings change? If your feelings change, for good reason, it wasn't unconditional love to begin with. Was it even love to begin with? Because if someone changes the way they start showing up for you, do you feel betrayed, or do you show more concern about why it is that someone you believe is not that kind of a person is now behaving out of character? So you try to connect with them in a way that helps them to realize that they are like letting themselves down, let alone letting you down. When you love someone, it can't be about you anymore. It has to be about what you love about them and what you want for them. So if anything, I think there would be probably some level of unconditional love in parenting. When you're raising an innocent child, a baby, a toddler, all the way up to the point where you start realizing that their disrespect or disregard for you is no longer innocent, it's actually deliberate. At that point, your unconditional love as a parent changes. Because now you're faced with condoning what they're doing that is harming and showing a complete disregard for you, while at the same time you feel this connection to want to love them. So if you continue on that path and you challenge them and you don't accept that behavior and things like that, I could argue that could be interpreted as unconditional love, because you will not allow someone you care for to behave in a way that you know is detrimental to themselves or to others, especially others. The moment you're supportive in someone's behavior that causes harm to others, you are complicit. And then you have to ask the question, why is it that you're supportive of something like that? It's not because you love them, because that's not what love looks like. Love doesn't enable harm. So then it must be because of what you get from them, what you need from them, how you need them to see you, how you need them to accept you. That's not love. That's self-serving. So unconditional love, for the most part, I think is a myth when it comes to any relationship other than blood ties. In blood ties, I believe it is very much possible. I believe it's possible also between partners, between spouses, between people who genuinely love each other. But you need to be very clear about what it is that you love about each other and what it is that defines what love looks like to you. And it sounds like I'm just taking apart some romantic notion because I'm, I don't know, jaded about it. I'm using that word too much today. But it's not that. It's that if we don't live purposefully, if we don't connect with things meaningfully, then we're going to be distracted constantly by what it is that we intend and what we feel. And then we honor our feelings to the point of causing harm, and we defend ourselves because of how we feel. So don't judge me harshly because I was feeling like this, or I feel this way, that's why I'm doing this, or that's why I was harsh towards you. And that you can explain your feelings so that you can help someone to understand why it is that you behave badly. But you can't use your feelings to justify why you behave badly. Explaining yourself and justifying yourself are two completely different things. Protecting someone you love and condoning or enabling harm from them onto others, totally different things. So when we start looking at this idea of unconditional love and this blind loyalty that it actually fosters, we need to remember that that's when we lose ourselves to it. That's when we lose our guiding principles and our value system, because we now place something above all of that, because it's unconditional. It's like the ridiculous nonsense that you see in some of the storylines and the plots in Marvel and DC movies these days, where it is that the superheroes are always focused on how it is that everyone deserves a chance. Even when they behave badly, you don't write them off. Well, you don't write people off, but you do hold them accountable. And you do make sure that they pay in due what it is that they caused harm with. There has to be accountability, otherwise you lose the entire balance of society. So in the absence of accountability, you end up with imbalance and injustice within your own home, within your own family. And that's why there's so many people these days that want to write other family members off, because they don't see the accountability that they have. Unconditional love has to be tempered, has to be moderated and regulated so that it is true to something greater than it. It's an outcome of resonance, strong, resounding connections with someone who lives by your code of life as well. And in the absence of that, it's transactional. You're loving what you get from them, and you're loving what it is that they allow you to give to them, because you want to be able to care for someone. You want to be able to be a reason for someone to be happy and to want to wake up in the morning and smile with you. That serves you. And there's nothing wrong with it. But just understand that that's what it is. So when someone starts behaving badly, or they're not reciprocating, or they're not receiving you in that way, and something changed and you don't know what changed, how you respond to that will determine whether you love them or you loved what you got from them. And I think when we start looking at it from that perspective, we can hold ourselves more accountable for our contribution rather than what it is that we need from others. Because that's the biggest problem we've got, is that too many people are focused on what they need, what they deserve, what they have rights to, and what they're entitled to. But they're not nearly as committed to focusing on what it is that others have a right over them about, what it is that they are supposed to contribute towards others. And that's the thing, if you are sincere, if you are genuinely sincere with conviction about your values, your principles, your code of life, how it is that you want to live your life, what you believe is correct and true about life. If you subscribe to a value system, you will live by that value system regardless of how others treat you. The moment you're willing to compromise your values because you're not getting what you need from someone else, or you're willing to compromise their rights because they're not fulfilling your rights, then it's self-serving. And if that comes into the domain of love, then it's not unconditional love. So whenever I ask people, what is it that you love about your partner? What is it that you appreciate about your life? What gratitude do you have? That's usually where it reveals that, for the most part, people don't connect with the real important stuff. They're connected with the surface level things, with the veneer, with the common traits that we always talk about and we celebrate because it's easy to connect with. When I ask people if they what are they grateful for in life, they're always telling me about everything around them that they have, including their health and their jobs and their quality of life and their family and the loved ones that they share space with and things like that. But no one talks about the attributes that they have that offers kindness and empathy and compassion to others. No one tells me that they're grateful about that. And you can't increase what you're not grateful for, because you have to first acknowledge a blessing before you can actually do something positive with it. Otherwise you take it for granted. Same thing when it comes to relationships. When I ask people, what do you love about your partner? They tell me the same things. And go on social media and you'll see most of the memes and the reels and everything else is about what we get from people. I love how they make me feel. I love how they do this for me. I love how they do that thing. I love how they look. I love how it's always about the aesthetic and about the transaction. It's never about loving what it is that that person possesses as a trait, as an intrinsic character attribute that makes them endearing, because against the backdrop of their life or against the backdrop of the world in which you guys are trying to operate, they demonstrate a certain character or value about themselves that you find endearing, because it's within that context that you believe there's so much more substance to it. Now you're loving the person. You're not loving what the person does. Because what people do, there's any number of reasons for that. Any number of motives for it. But if you love what it is that someone is having to power through in their own capacity and their own struggle and their own efforts to be able to do that thing, and you see that, then you stand a much better chance of loving the person who is doing that rather than just loving what they do. And the same thing goes for yourself. If you don't see your tenacity, your resilience, your commitment, your conviction, if you don't see what it is that you push through in the bad times, in the sad times, in the depressed times, to rise again and to continue to hope and continue to strive, if you don't see what gives you the ability to do that, then you turn yourself into a utility and you only love your ability to do things. You don't love what makes it possible for you to do it. So you won't be able to appreciate your resilience and your tenacity and then count on that and have confidence in that to be able to power through the next unfortunate event that might come your way. Because you're focused on whether you can or you can't, not on why you can, why you're able to, why you're capable. So if we want to start talking about love and unconditional love, we need to start giving it more substance. We need to start giving it more depth, more. It has to be made up of something substantial, something measurable, something tangible. It can't just be this idea that, oh my God, just the way I feel around them is just, oh, you don't know. That's why I love them. No, you're infatuated. You're delusional. You're any number of things besides love. And if you lack self-awareness, if you lack true substance in your own life, you'll be easily taken by any person that surprises you. And the only thing that will be required to surprise you is that they have to do more than what you expect from them. That's a very low bar to set, by the way. Because if you're raised in a group, in a setting, in a home, in a community where everyone just does the bare minimum and the bare minimum is celebrated, where we tend to celebrate mediocrity, participation awards, that ridiculous thing. If you're raised in that kind of an environment, it will be very easy for you to fall in love. Because the moment someone comes along and they do just a little bit more than that mediocrity, you're going to think, wow, so amazing. It sets them apart from everyone else. We've lost it, haven't we? And that would explain why it is that we've got such frivolous and whimsical and fragile social bonds these days. Because there's no substance to it. There's very few people of substance around these days. Because everyone's just about their aesthetic. Everyone's trying to present themselves as an influencer or present themselves as some source of wisdom so that they can get a following. And we measure our credibility based on how many people agree with us rather than the substance of what it is that we're presenting. We have to do better than this. We have to hold ourselves to a higher standard than just these frivolous notions of what happiness looks like, what love looks like, what romance looks like. There has to be more than that. We have to connect with each other deeply, meaningfully. See the human, see the person, see the gentleness in the face of an onslaught of absolute horror. Then you can love the gentleness because it's coming in through conviction despite having all of the reason not to be gentle. Then you've got something of substance. But if you see someone being gentle because everything is going in their favor and they come from this mollycoddled environment where everyone is so soft-spoken and so gentle to each other, that's normal. That then becomes minimum criteria. You need to have more than that. You need to see more than that in your partner and in yourself. You need to see more than that in your children so that you can nurture those attributes of theirs that brings out that angelic look on their face sometimes. The one that makes you spend money when you don't have money to spend. Those sorts of things. But I hope I make sense in some way, because honestly, look around you and look at how many people have relationships because they're afraid of being alone rather than because they truly love something about the person they're with. One question that I've been asking a lot of clients lately, and it trips them up all the time. And it's sad that it trips them up, because it's not that I'm feeling clever about it because they can't answer the question. It's that we don't consider these things. And that question is, what is the purpose of your relationship? What is the purpose of your marriage? And usually people can't answer that because they assume that the purpose of marriage is to have a family and, like, grow old together. Who else benefits? How does society benefit from your relationship, from your union? What upliftment are you creating? How are you making sure that the community around you that you take from, because we all take from the community, we take from society, how are you ensuring that that is actually progressing in the right direction, that they're improving, rather than just taking and stepping back when you see that society is declining and community is declining and empathy and compassion is slowly withering away in our social interactions? How is your community, your union? How is your relationship that you're in? How is it contributing to the upliftment of the people around you? What is the purpose of your life? What are you creating of value that, if it wasn't for your contribution, that value would not be possible? What's unique to your contribution to society and to the people around you? And how is it that you and your partner are actually building each other up to be able to achieve that? Support each other in doing that? Or do you have this little kind of transaction that keeps you guys kind of glued together through a contract of sorts? Because if I get that from you and you get that from me, then we're good. But I have my life and you have your life, and I have my interests and you have your interests, and I have my hobbies and you have your hobbies, and I have my job and you have your job. So the only thing you need then is someone that's a warm body next to you in bed at night so that you don't feel alone. And occasionally you get benefits from them. Is that what life is supposed to be about? Think about how phenomenal the opportunities and the capabilities are that we have access to. And then we wither all of that down into this clinical, cold, predictable existence that we call love. Come on. We're capable of more than that, I'm sure. Seriously. We have to be capable of more than that. Otherwise, what's the point? Everyone talks about passion. Everyone talks about wanting to, like, knock the lights out and leave their mark and everything else. But they hold themselves to a mediocre standard. Like, if everyone else celebrates something, then that means that's my target. No, it shouldn't be. Your target should be about what you see uniquely as your own contribution, your own value, something that no one else understands why it's important. And then you exert yourself in demonstrating why it's important. That's passion, that's conviction. That's where unconditional love can actually come from. Not from, oh, because you make me feel so good. Seriously. Is that all you got? Is all you've got celebrating birthdays, anniversaries, and Valentine's Day? And going on a nice trip once in a while for holiday? How do you celebrate life? Do you celebrate life? Or is life just a whole lot of token gestures and token occasions that confirm that you're still in it? You're still committed? I think I need to do an episode on these token gestures and token commitments and token anniversaries and birthdays and everything else, and talk about exactly why it is that is eroding the very love and quality of life that you're looking for. You can't love what you don't understand. You can't love what you don't see, what you don't acknowledge, what you don't see value in. So if you claim to be loving people and your partner and your life and things like that, but you don't fully, not maybe fully is the wrong word, but you don't genuinely, deeply, substantially connect with the essence and the value of what it is that you have, is it love? I don't think it is. I think we need to hold ourselves to a higher standard. And that higher standard is in how it is that we show up with substance and conviction and sincerity towards each other, and also towards what we claim is our value system and our principles and our goals and our vision about life and all of that. Mediocre is so boring, so tedious, it's so exhausting. You wake up every day uninspired because your life is mediocre, not because life is tough. Think about it. Hold yourself to a higher standard and stop using things and words and things like that whimsically because it gets you a certain reaction or it avoids a certain problem. Be sincere, speak with conviction, live with conviction, be purposeful, be bold, be courageous, be curious. Stop being mediocre, please. We're dying as a society because of it. I'm Zaid Ismail. I hope that annoyed you or at least triggered you in some way or another. Otherwise, I'm failing at what I'm doing here. No, seriously, just I hope it's a reason for reflection, for pause, for reconsidering what it is that you might have lost sight of in life, because that's what happens. When things become routine, when things become convenient, when things become predictable, it loses value. So get the spontaneity back into your life, and hopefully that will lead you down paths that you never ever thought you'd travel. Good paths. Take care.